I'm Bridget Samuel. I'm stage manager for State Theatre, and I will be touring Euphoria around country SA. So the role of a stage manager is many and varied. We're the conduit through everything that everything comes through. So we're responsible for all the scheduling, making sure that the costumes and props are there and have the appropriate things, like the pocket for someone to put a prop in. We are responsible for mental health, physical health, making sure that the rehearsal runs smoothly and on time. We're responsible for making sure that everyone has the cuts in the script so that everyone's on the same page. We're responsible for everything and everything. We're the problem solvers of the whole company. So stage manager starts about a week before rehearsals start. We get the script and we go through the script and make sure that we understand what's happening. We need to also go through the script to make sure that we know what props are needed, whether there's going to be any costume changes for people changing character. We also need to break it up so that when we do rehearsals, we're not doing like a huge chunk. We need to make sure that we're just doing like one scene at a time. We also are responsible for setting up the rehearsal room. So we get the plans from the designer and we mark that up on the floor so that the actors know how much room they have to move around. We're also responsible for sourcing some of the props and set items so that they have something to practice with. So we have a lot to do in that first week. We also need to sit down with the director and set the schedule. We sit down with the costume designer and work out when we need to get people into costume fittings. So we're sort of bringing everything together and making a giant schedule for everything to happen. I start working, thinking about working on the play when I start working in pre-production, mainly because often it's the first time that I've actually received the script, and also I personally find that there's not much point thinking about the play if you don't know what the set looks like or what the costume design looks like, because that actually works into everything with the script. We don't need to think about our characters, we need to think about the technical elements, we need to think about the elements of costume that we have. So until we see the big picture, we can't really move forward. So touring can be quite difficult because you do go to quite a number of different venues. So as a stage manager, we need to think about everything. We need to think about whether the set will fit into the actual stage. And if it doesn't, what elements are really important and what elements can we cut? We need to think about whether the actors can do all their moves in that set area. So sometimes we might need to have them expand what they're doing and sort of cheat out, or we may need to contain it a little bit more if it's a smaller space. We need to think about where we're going to set up the quick change areas for the costumes. We need to make sure that there is actually a laundry in the space, so we know where we can, iron and wash things that need to be washed. We need to think about where we can set up the props tables so that people have easy access to it. We also need to think about where we're going to actually call the show from. So usually we're in Prompt Corner, which is downstage near the sort of proscenium arch of the theatre, and sometimes that isn't the best place to call from because you can't actually see the stage. So we need to think about that when we're in different venues. We need to think about how we communicate to the local crew about what we need, because some people have different skills that we can, use. So we need to think about the best way of using those people. So there's a lot to think about. We need to be able to problem solve really, really quickly, which is the main thing that a stage manager does, is problem solving. Stage manager works with everyone. We work with the actors, the director, we work with the technical staff, the lighting designer, the sound designer, the costume. We work with the local crew. We literally are the go-to person for the communication, because we know the schedule, we know the play, we know what needs to happen. So everyone comes to us, and we also go to them for the information that we need to make everything run smoothly. So as a stage manager, we not only look after people's physical health, making sure that they're doing the right thing by warming up and warming down and making sure that they're not pushing themselves too much in their physicality in the room. We also recently have been starting to look at people's mental health, because that is a really important thing. And actors often take on, a lot of emotion and feeling, and sometimes they draw on their own experience. And we need to have ways that they can de-roll, get rid of their character, so they're not taking it home and feeling all that, angst and emotional feeling, because it is work, and you do sort of need to leave it in the rehearsal room or in the theatre. So in the past, a lot of people have turned to drinking as a way of de-rolling. They often go to the pub and, just have a couple of drinks and, chat. Whilst that is good, if you're relying on drinking in order to de-roll, it's probably not the healthiest manner of doing it. So we have a couple of different things that we recommend that you do, whether it's a visualization of visualizing packing your character into a bag and leaving it at the door, and as soon as you walk through the door you've left your character in the rehearsal room, or whether it's a physicality. So you take off your character's shoes and you brush yourself down, and then you walk out and your character has been left in the room. Some other things that I recommend is if you have a bath, going home and having a nice relaxing soak, and just letting all your worries and all the things that you felt in that day just to seep into the water, and then actually staying in the bath but taking the plug out of the bath and just letting the water drain away. And as the water drains away, you actually become heavier and heavier, and everything goes into the plug hole. And then when you stand up, you feel really light and really good, because everything has been washed away. We also recommend doing different visualizations like that. So you may have a shower and just imagine everything washing away. Or one thing that we have done as a group, we were doing some of Shakespeare's plays, and it was a tragedy, and it was quite heavy in everything, as tragedies are. So as a group, we would come together after rehearsals or after the performance and sing a silly song and dance away, and that just broke up the fact that the show's over, we're done, we're shaking it off, and that really helped a lot of people to de-roll. I think working as a stage manager, it's a wonderful opportunity. You get to meet so many different people. You get to see so many amazing things happen, working from the ground up, and then something really special comes out of it, and it's a wonderful thing to be part of. It can be challenging, because you do need to deal with a lot of people, deal with a lot of problems. You're always on your feet, always sort of thinking about what you can do to help, and what might go wrong next and how you can fix it. So sometimes that can be really challenging. I think as well, being on tour can be challenging, especially if you're on tour for a long period of time, because you can be away from your friends and family and miss out on the special days, like birthdays and weddings. But I think it's also a great opportunity. You can meet lots of people, you can see all these different amazing parts of Australia, and find fun dresses and accessories, and go to places that you wouldn't normally go to. So I actually fell into stage management. It was never something that I thought about doing. I never did drama at school. And I didn't even know it was a real job until a friend asked me to help him on an amateur production that he was doing. He needed a stage manager and he asked me to do that. And I said, sure, not knowing what the role actually meant. I got a book out from the library and read it, and then went back to my friend and I said, I can't do this. He's like, you'll be fine. So I did it, and I found that I absolutely loved it. I loved being part of that process. So I found out that there was a course that you could do at TAFE. So I applied and I did that, and I haven't looked back since, really. I think, if you're looking to go into stage management, what you need to do is just get out there. You need to see as much as possible. Anything that comes to town, have a look at it, because the more that you're exposed to, the more you understand and the more you can learn from. I'd also recommend asking, your local theatre company if you can come and observe rehearsals or observe the tech week, because again, the more you can see, the better it is. So the difference between the stage manager in the rehearsal room and in the theatre, it is still quite similar, but in the theatre they take a more active role. So in the rehearsal room they're collating all the information, they're writing down all the movements that the cast does, any changes, quick changes costume wise, what prop they're using at what time. So we're making sure that we have all of the information so that when we get into the theatre, then we know the show backwards, and we can help with the designers, the lighting designer, the sound designer, put cue points in. So what we use in the rehearsal room, one of the actors might be standing on a platform and the lighting designer will go, oh wait, where does that happen? And I'm like, okay, this happens in this scene at this time. He's like, okay, so I'll put some lights there so they can be seen, and we'll put a cue there. So in the theatre, all of our knowledge is then put into practice. We also run the stage when we're in the theatre, so the director takes a little bit of a back seat and the technical elements come together. So the rehearsal room, the directors put the play together. In the theatre, we now put all the technical elements on top of that so it can become, one whole product. So we're responsible for calling the show. So that means calling when the lights happen, when the sound happens, making sure that any set moves happen at the right time, that the cast are on stage at the right time, in the right costume, with the right prop. We're also responsible for the safety on stage. So if something does go wrong, we have the ability to stop the show. Hopefully that never happens, but it does occasionally, so we need to be prepared for that. We're also responsible for, just making sure that everything happens on time. So we need to open the house at the right time, so that means that everything needs to be set before then and everyone needs to be ready. So we're constantly on our watches, making sure that everything runs smoothly so that the theatre goers can actually get in their seats and watch the show and enjoy it, hopefully.